Hi everyone! Today I would like to share with you my findings on the Enigma Machine. Enjoy! Alright guys, so to start off here is my title page, the Enigma Machine Cipher. A brief history of Enigma is basically the machine was invented by a German engineer by the name of Arthur Scherbius. And this was invented in the 1920s, and it was basically made mostly just for like commercial uses, so they could give this machine to like companies, and companies could use this machine to like secure basically like information that they didn't want for the public. However, the Nazis saw potential in the machine, and that's why they adopted it. So they adopted it primarily to use it in a similar fashion, only they were using it for war efforts to hide intelligence from the Allies. Now we will kind of talk about how the Enigma cipher works. So basically the way that it worked was there was a keyboard and a light board, and then there was 3 rotors. And the primary feature of this Enigma machine was something called letter substitution. Basically, you would type in a letter and it would go through this series of events right here. Basically, it would go through the thing, in which case this thing was the rotor, and basically it would go through all these rotors, hit a reflector right there, reflector B, as it's shown in the diagram, and then it would move back through and come out as a different letter. And due to the rotation of these, since there was 3 rotors, since they rotated, it allowed this machine to have a very random element to it. Very hard to crack if you didn't understand it. So to add to the randomness, you're thinking how did they decipher anything then? Well, the Nazis had a 3-number code system, kind of like the settings on like a lock or a safe. And basically, this was the code. You had to put this in, as shown right here. Like, this is an example of what a code might be. There's 3 different dials there. And basically, 2 Nazis would set the code using the Enigma machine, and that's how they could communicate, because they had the code, so they could decipher it. And how they deciphered it was they used monthly code sheets, and this is how they determined what the code would be. And they changed the code every day, so every day they would have to change this combination after midnight, and they had all the codes written down for a given month, so each month they would do a different sheet. And because of this was just another reason why it was so hard to decipher this, because the Allies would have to get a hold of these sheets, which was almost impossible because, like, you don't know who has them, and it was just a nightmare. So this was one of the big reasons early on why it was hard to determine how the Enigma worked. So here's just a little basic rundown of some of the math that was involved with this Enigma machine. So it had the rotors, which we've discussed earlier. Each rotor had 26 starting places, and the Nazis usually would pick 3 of these rotors out of a box of 5. So this allowed potentially thousands of different combinations, you know? And so looking at this equation right here, 5 times 4 times 3 equals 60, that's how many ways there was to just use 3 rotors. And with 26 choices for each rotor, this would be 26 times 26 times 26. This would equal 17,576. Now, as this image shows right here, this is an additional component they added called a plug board. This plug board would basically take the basic scrambling that already occurred within the Enigma rotors to the reflector and back to the lights, and it would scramble it up even more. This potentially could make it just insanely high. And with this board, it used 10 pairs of 26 numbers. 6 letters were left out, so each pair would be divided by 2. Now, crazy. This basically allowed the possibilities to be extremely high, as I had mentioned. 158 quintillion and rising, and that's just kind of what the number would look like. It's really, really big number. And so yeah, this machine had quite an intimidation to it, and this is why it was considered unbreakable for a very long time, and basically no one wanted to attempt to crack it. But however, with everything there was a flaw. So on to this flaw with the Enigma machine. Basically, as this picture kind of depicts, I'll try to explain it, but basically a letter could never become itself. So if you typed in R, it would never result in R, and F would never result in F, and so forth. So the code was basically broken by guesswork, and this was determined when they noticed a pattern in the way that the messages were being sent. So things like words like weather report, or they would say Hail Hitler at the end of some of these. So they basically could cancel that out immediately. And basically because of this, it helped narrow it down quite a bit, and they were able to figure out more about it. However, it was still very intimidating and much too difficult for just human minds to determine it within a reasonable time frame. So now we enter Alan Turing and the bomb machine, basically. So basically, a brilliant mathematician named Alan Turing, he came up with a machine called the bomb machine. And actually, something I didn't touch on in the presentation here, it was actually the Poles that were the first to start to crack the Enigma machine, but the Enigma machine operated differently back then on a much less time frame than monthly and daily code sheets. So a lot of what they did didn't really result in much. So Alan Turing was really the one that actually cracked the code per se. So he based this machine off of the machine that the Poles had already kind of made, and this is Alan Turing right here. And this is what his machine looked like. So he built the machine kind of replicating the plug board shown earlier on the Enigma machine. It was built to replicate that, and he used the same exact wiring techniques to cancel these out. And so him and a team of code breakers would then figure out the codes using this machine for a given day, and they would adjust the plug board accordingly, and over time they got really good at doing this. So basically they got it down to where using this bomb machine could usually determine the code in about 20 minutes. So they would have it everything in 20 minutes for the day. And so yeah, that's basically my presentation. Some final thoughts here are, just to take away, is the primary flaw was no letter could become itself. That was the big thing in breaking it, and historians estimate actually that the breaking of the Enigma code shortened the war by about 2 years and saving millions of lives. And very interesting, looking at the bomb machine and its basic designs, it was kind of like the first look into what the computer would become, like the technology we now take for granted. Like this was what it was back then. It was a bomb machine. And so yeah, very interesting project. I enjoyed doing it, and I hope you enjoyed watching this video. And these are just my sources cited. I will provide these with a link in the description, and if you guys want to check out this or any other Enigma machine stuff, then you can use some of these links to learn more.